Well, everyone, it looks like My Little Dashie just won't go away. Not that I'm really complaining, I guess. But someone has requested that I read an alternate ending to the original My Little Dashie. Let me see here. His name was Mine33. So, this video is for you, Mine33. And I know in that other video I said I would not be doing a reading this week. And, well, it is a new week. I got some things done for the client, and this isn't very long, so I thought I would just go ahead and get it out of the way, yeah? But, yeah, let's get this started, shall we? Oh, and if you have for some reason not read the original My Little Dashie, you can listen to me read it. Might put a link up in the video, I don't know. But yeah, here we go. My Little Dashie, alternate ending, by Emerald Flight. As the princess's glowing horn touched my forehead, I felt a warm sensation from my toes rising slowly to my head, and my whole body tingled. I looked through my teary eyes to my left and noticed something before I became unconscious. Twilight's horn had let out a burst of blinding yellow light. I heard, "Twilight, not yet," and all became silent. When I awoke, I was lying down in an odd position. The floor beneath me was the same wooden texture, but everything was dark. I assumed that I had woken in the middle of the night. I pulled myself up to my feet, tears once more welling in my eyes as I remembered the events that had recently transpired. To my great surprise, I toppled forward to the hard wooden floor, landing on my nose. It began to bleed, but I could hardly care, and I didn't notice what had happened until I pulled myself up onto my warm tan couch. My anatomy was strange, and my legs felt as though they were broken. My stomach was larger, and my back was extremely uncomfortable in my current position. I almost died when I heard a sound that chilled me to my bone, in the best way imaginable. It was another voice, the voice of Twilight Sparkle. I tensed, as though I felt confusion throughout my body. "Oh no!" I heard her cry. "What have I done?" I stood up to get a closer look in the dim light, my eyes still fuzzy from my tears. I fell forwards again, but onto my hands? After all the initial shock of, "Oh my god, ponies, what?" I was able to piece together this strange coincidence that I was involved in. Twilight brought the ponies back to Ponyville, but she had also brought back a large circle of my house's grand floor, including most of its furniture. I was also vaguely aware that this transportation involved me. As my eyes began to adjust to the natural darkness, I saw all the ponies that were in my house earlier that day, including one that had been in my house for a full 15 years. Trying to concentrate very badly, with my nose, bleeding, and my head hurting, one beautiful phrase bounced around in my pained skull. My Little Dashie. I began to cough. This experience was too much for me. I tried to bring my hand up to my mouth, but it wouldn't reach. Oh my. By this point, Fluttershy was the most attentive, and also the first to notice me. "Well, what's happened to him?" My pulse quickened. Fluttershy made it seem as though I was injured. Pinkie gasped, followed by Applejack and Rarity. My head hurt more as I tried to lay down, but I stood stock still on all fours, wondering what would happen next. Rainbow Dash looked up and saw me standing about 10 feet away from the other ponies. It had not yet occurred to me what Dash was going to do when she saw me. Twilight, on the other hand, was looking at a whitish mass on the ground, and I knew it had to be the unconscious Princess Celestia. But my total concern remained on Dashie. Forever passed, as Dashie stared at me and I at her, until the silence was broken by Applejack's country twang. "Twilight, what on earth just happened?" My attention could not be drawn as Twilight began to explain that she had transported too early. I knew that. I tried once more to stand upright, but I toppled over again. Blood poured out of my nose. I remained there, as I saw no point to try again until I knew what had happened. Fluttershy was the first to approach. She seemed much taller than she did back in the living room at the house, but perhaps that was because of my position. I just wanted to get to Dashie. I reached out my hand and recoiled, because what reached out was a blurry tan mass of flesh. I looked closer, and I noticed an imprint of the bottom of my deformed hand. It was the mark of a horseshoe. I gasped, rolled onto my back, and broke into a cold sweat. I was panting. By now, all the other ponies had crowded around my tannish body, including the slightly disheveled Princess Celestia. A quiet murmuring took over the group. How could this happen? Did I do this? But one voice stood out of all. Daddy? Dashie, I replied, coughing a bit. I thought I'd never... Fluttershy put a hoof over my mouth. It was farther out from my face than I remembered. Please, sir. But right now you should rest. I think this would be strange for you if you knew what had happened. But I already knew. I smiled, first slowly, then breaking out into a huge grin that spread across my face. Dashie, I said, slowly, quietly. I'm so glad. I was very weak, and the thin trickle of blood entered my mouth as I spoke. Please, stay here. I woke up slowly while it was still dark. I sat for a second with my eyes closed. I recollected everything that had happened to me. I sat up slowly, trying my best to configure my new body. There was no dried blood across my face. The other ponies had taken care of me so well. When I had awoken, I looked around at my settings. I noticed the magnificent cliff and the high, clear waters it swept into. I noticed a bubbly pink town to my left, dull in the early morning darkness. But when I turned to my right, I saw 5 ponies fast asleep in a small group. I rose to all fours. I knew this was as high as I would get, forever after today. I walked over towards the ponies, wobbling slightly. I nudged Dash with my nose, trying not to wake the others. She woke up slowly, like she always has. Dad? She questioned. I nodded in response. Come here, I want to show you something. She arose quietly, levitating. The feat was even more amazing now that I saw it from her own eye level. I guided her over to the cliff, where we sat together. We watched the sun rise slowly in the east. No words were spoken, but none were needed. A solitary tear fell down my left cheek. I wish this moment would not end. Well, that didn't take long at all now, did it? Well, there's an alternate ending to My Little Dashie. Personally, I prefer what happened in the sequel, and then the threequel. But that's just me. And, I read this for a viewer. So if you enjoyed this alternate ending to My Little Dashie, be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, do other stuff, I don't know. Leave me suggestions, yeah, that's something you could do. Request things for me to read. And then until next time, goodbye.